reminder of that question that we have today. Do you support government move to suspend new curriculum rollout in 2020? This came in as late as last week, despite the fact that the government had made it very clear that the rollout was going to start at the beginning of 2019. However, due to several challenges, the government now says that that is not going to be possible, and that's what we'd like to discuss. But would like to find out what really you think of that. Let's start off first of all with the CS for Education and what she has to say in regards to the rollout.
The CBC national pilot be extended for 1 more year to allow alignment in the implementation, particularly intensive in-service teacher training. The national rollout will take place in January 2020. We will finalize and launch the National Curriculum Policy Framework in January next year. We'll present the sessional paper on reforming education and training sector in Kenya before Parliament in February 2019, when the House resumes its session. Once passed, it will ensure a new instructional paradigm in the Kenyan education system. We will launch the National Education Sector Strategic Plan for the period 2018-2022, again in February of 2019.
All right, and I'm joined in studio by Dr. Wandia Njoya, who's a lecturer at Daystar University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
having
having
me.
me.
We were also expecting Professor Wilson Ngeno, who's a Vice Chancellor for Kiabanga University, and also Professor Winston Juma, but hopefully they'll join us as we carry on with the conversation. But let's start with you, Dr. Wandia. First of all, on what it is that we're trying to fix out of 844.
Actually, we don't know. That was the question I have been asking for a whole year. What exactly are we trying to fix? At the beginning of the year, the problems they had attributed to 844, I kept saying those are not 844 problems, those are social and economic problems, which must be fixed in the socio-economic sphere. And you can't expect an education system to deal with those problems.
Yeah. Because the thing is, it's important that we know what is wrong with 844, if at all there's anything wrong, so that now we can compare and say that, fine, this works, this doesn't, and what we're bringing in the 2633 system then works. But from what you're saying, what are some of the things that they had highlighted as the challenges for 844 that you say now should be fixed from a social, economic perspective?
Okay, I think the first one that they kept saying was that it was too exam focused. And the research shows, in all education research, it says that exam focus does not come from the curriculum itself. It comes from either teaching methods. If teachers announce at the beginning of a class that they are going to test something, then the students focus on the test rather than on what they are going to learn in their class. The other thing is few economic opportunities. The fewer spaces there are to progress, for example, to university or to get jobs, makes people more and more desperate to pass exams. Now, the thing is, even Kenyan research that has been done by Kenyans says that a lot of students put focus on exams because they fear that if they don't do that, they won't go to university. So that is what people are trying to deal with, but instead of fixing those problems, we are being told we need to change the curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, as a lecturer, do you feel that the system we have currently is too academic focused?
I've said before that academic and exam cramming are two different things. Academic means that you're rigorous in what you're doing, that you do a lot of research, that you read, and that you're able to debate and articulate ideas. Those things are not encouraged in the system. What is encouraged is reproducing what the lecturer says. And there's a whole history of why that has happened. It has happened because of our colonial history, the fact that teachers are seen as gods, but it's also the fact that now teachers are becoming less and less important in society. And then, of course, like I said, the economic pressure to pass makes people feel so desperate that they'll do anything that the teacher or the lecturer says.
Okay, so 844 as a system, in your opinion, is not necessarily the problem, or that is not necessarily what is making our system very exam focused?
No, it's not. In fact, I would say it is a lot of administrative, in fact, it's what people call administrative bloat. We have had an increase in administrators, especially in TSC, and more surveillance of teachers. We have the TPAD, which is what do you call supervising teachers, holding their hands. We're not giving teachers enough freedom to interpret the curriculum in the classroom. And in fact, what CBC does, what is being proposed, is even worse because it is telling the teachers beforehand, these are the outcomes that must come from your class. And when we test, we will test those outcomes. So if we don't get those outcomes, then you have not taught. So actually, we are still going to teach to the test. We are not going to stop. It's going to even become worse.
So in your opinion, the 2663 system that comes in is not necessarily going to change the way learners interact with the teacher? Because at the end of the day, it is mainly the results that count, not the process.
Yes, and in fact, this is what, because they have tried to roll it out in the United States, and the teachers refused, because you tie students down to the outcome that has been determined from KICD. So there's no freedom for the teacher to look for different outcomes or to monitor what the students are doing. You have to produce the outcomes that you have been told, because those are the competency outcomes that have been dictated to you by the curriculum.
Okay, so from what you're saying then, do we then need to retrain our teachers?
Yes, we not even retrain, support. We need more teaching resource centers. The government already has curriculum support officers in counties. Those people should be empowered to give teachers more resources, more teaching methods, keep giving the teachers professional development and progression. But just announcing things from Nairobi and expecting the whole country's education system to be changed doesn't work. The ministry has to go to the ground, to teaching, to counties, to meet teachers, to hear what teachers are saying, but also to give them more support and more equipment. Okay. That's what we need. And then, of course, we also need to sort of open the economy. I think we cannot have a better education system without a better economy. That's just...
What's the relationship between, or what do you equate to a good economy vis-a-vis education? What is it that would change?
First of all, one of the things I've said is that we need to revise the idea of title deeds, because what title deeds are doing in Kenya is that they are fixing acquiring of wealth to land. And the problem with that is that now people don't use their ideas or their labor to create wealth. You just inherit title deeds, and that's what creates wealth. So that is rigging the economic system, because the people who come out cannot be able to get, for example, a loan, because the bank will say, bring a title deed. And then also because the political class is so pegged on this kind of wealth accumulation, they don't see the need, for example, for better patenting laws, better respect for copyright, you know, the things that would encourage young people to invest their ideas and to be able to earn a living from their ideas and their labor. And then also, of course, we need to improve salaries and social services, so that young people, when they're starting businesses, they are not afraid of, will my wife be able to go to maternity because I don't have money? You're not thinking of those things because your healthcare is sorted and the education for your children is sorted. So there are those social things that need to be done so that you release pressure off the school to be the place where that determines employment. We cannot determine employment only through the school.
Through the school. All right, now we would like to assume as a country that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development went through a certain process to decide that 844 is not working, and therefore let's introduce a new curriculum which is more, CATS, continuous assessment test based, where you have the 2633. Are you convinced as a lecturer that they went through the right process to establish why now we're going for 2633? What stops us from 5 years down the road saying that actually 2633 is not really a good system. Let's now introduce another different thing.
In fact, I think that's where we are going to be headed. We'll be told within another 10 years that we need to have a new system. I'm not convinced that KICD went through the process. First of all, KICD does not have the mandate to change the system. In fact, let's even just back up there, that this is not a curriculum change, it's a system change. Curriculum is the content that is in the classroom. A system change involves changing the structure of schools. You know, now because kids will stay only 6 years in primary school, you'll have to add 2 more years to the secondary school. That is more than a curriculum change. And that's why KICD did not have the mandate to be changing the system like this. It needed a multi-pronged approach that should have started from a sessional paper. But now what they are doing is they are acting retrogressively. They are saying, okay, we have the curriculum, now we are going to take the sessional paper to Parliament. But no, they should have started the process properly. And for me, I'm saying they should start again. They shouldn't go back.
So in your opinion, is it right for them then to continue the 844 system until we get ourselves right? That 1 year delay?
I think focusing on 844 or 2633 is misleading because the point is education. It's not how many years people stay in a certain place. So I think if we say staying with 844, going to this, we are missing the point. The point is, how do we improve the education of our children? No, the education of our children. You improve it by improving the pedagogy, which is the style of teaching, and then, of course, the content. But content also must be backed up by resources. So have teaching resource centers, have more digital access to schools, and then have libraries. Because this textbook thing is also misleading. You cannot teach only on one textbook. We use many books as teachers. So these are the things that need to be improved. And then as those are improved, then we can be reflecting as a nation whether we want to change the number of years, what that would mean, what does that mean for promotion of teachers and principals. You know, all those other questions, we would have time to think about them. But when you say we have to start a new system, it puts pressure on everybody to rush into a new, completely new system, and then you spend the next 20 years trying to make it work, which is what happened with 844. And we should not repeat that mistake.
All right. Now, we can look at certain examples, and our government officials are very well known for benchmarking. But when it comes to education, I'm not sure whether they've benchmarked. But we have, for instance, Nordic countries that seem to have gotten their education system right because, one, their children spend less time in class, but still are able to become more usable citizens to the kind of world that we are in. What stops us as a country from adopting some of the education systems that seem to work? I mean, they start their classes at 9, by 3 they're home, and they still seem to have a better quality education. So it's not the amount of time that we spend in class.
Ours is an Anglo-Saxon problem. What the problems we are seeing in Kenya are the same in the UK and the US. Continental Europe is slightly different because they have a different philosophy of life. They are not as cutthroat in competition. They give more resources for social services so that in places like Norway, you have healthcare and education which is paid for. Norway doesn't have private schools because even politicians go to public schools. So it's a whole it's a different social structure, and you can't go as a capitalist Anglo-Saxon thinking economy. You can't go to a Nordic country and just pull out the education system without pulling out all these other social support services they have, which we don't have. Scandinavian countries tend to be better socially than UK and the US. They are not as brutal, probably because they have a different history, but that's what makes their education system more social and more kinder to children than what you will find in the UK and the US. And in fact, actually, The UK and the US are sort of, the teachers are fighting the way we are fighting here. It's the same problem.
Same thing. So do we need, are we then missing the point when we try and change a system when our social structure is such that it is so rigid? We may change from 844 to 263 or 5, whatever. But then if we don't change the social structure, then we're still dealing with the same problem at the bottom. Yeah,
in fact, it will even be worse because the CBC we are being told about restricts the curriculum even more than 844. So what will happen is that teachers will be told this is the skill that the kids might have, and the teacher has to stick to that skill, whether the kids get it or whether they surpass it, it doesn't matter. And then there will be more testing, because for you to prove that the skill has been acquired, you need to test it. So it will be a nightmare. It will be worse than the things we are complaining about. It sounds very nice, what KICD is saying, but on the ground, what teachers in the UK and especially in the US are saying is that actually this system will, competency-based curriculum will even be worse than 844. 844 in its intention is what we call a liberal arts program, where people do different subjects, and the point is not to show that you know, but to be an all-rounded person. That was the point. I'm not saying that's how it turned out, but that was the point. And so the first 844s will tell you that they had arts, they had technical subjects, they had sciences, and they had the humanities. They had everything, but because of the exam thing was not sorted out, then it became a burden. But actually 844 in its design is a much better idea than the 2633. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk solutions, because we've highlighted what possibly are the challenges and where we as a country and as a society. What do you see as a solution for us?
Like I said, I think the first thing is to empower teachers. TSC needs to remove that TPAD thing that they use on the teachers, because it's forcing teachers to become more bureaucratic. Now teachers are busy filling forms to prove that they are teaching rather than being in the class teaching. I think we also need to empower teachers in terms of the pedagogy, the art and science of teaching. Give them more ideas and more resources of what they can do in the classroom.
As we give them more ideas and more resources, they are also a result or a product of the same system. So is it that the system is producing people that don't have ideas? Because I'm imagining as teachers, they should already be empowered to a point where they come up with the ideas rather than waiting to be given.
They are very disempowered, like I said, by the TSC. There have been programs which the government has done in the 90s and early 2000s, where they supported teachers by going to schools, demonstrating how to teach better, taking videos and then discussing with the teachers what the teaching looks like. And the results are that teachers felt very empowered. They loved teaching. And even the children, because they asked the children what their experience was, the children said they also enjoyed the classes more. There was also the Tusome initiative, which was started and I think is ending in a year's time. It was the same thing, really good results by just helping teachers teach literacy and mathematics in a different way. And everybody is happy with these things. So why not just continue these good programs that are already happening instead of shocking teachers? Because this is a shock. This is a shock to the system. Why put this shock to the system, have everybody scrambling, trying to make it work, and then in 5 years, that's when now we settle down, the dust settles down, and we start figuring what is right and what is wrong. I think let's continue doing the things that are being done that are right. And then we can discuss whether we want a new system independent of what is happening in schools. I think the problem is this haste to impose something on the school system before you have really thought it out. I think it's not fair to the children, it's not fair to the teachers. Let's discuss whether we want a new system independent of what is happening in the schools. Let the kids and the teachers learn. Leave them alone.
Leave them alone.
Yeah.
All right. We also need to discuss the involvement of the parent, because the parent is also a teacher of sorts or an enforcer, or your view as to whether the parent is involved enough in the child's education as we, as a society.
That question is ambiguous, and I know KICD had talked about it. There's a problem with putting so much focus on parental involvement because not all parents are equal. People have different resources. And if you insist on the parents being central in the education, what happens to the children whose parents are poor, whose parents are illiterate, or who don't have parents? So we need to be a little bit more sensitive to the social inequalities that could come if we insist on parental involvement. I think I would prefer to say democratic involvement. Let communities, whether they are grandmothers or parents or whoever, let communities have a bit more say in the running of schools and in knowing what is happening in the schools. Right now, schools are basically a law unto themselves. They harass parents, they raise fees, they tell the parents, if you don't like it, find another school. You know, that kind of, and there are no audited accounts for the schools. That kind of autocracy in the schools is what needs to go. We need schools that are more accountable to the public. And we, the public, can take care of even now the children who don't have parents in their home.
In the home.
Yeah, because all children are our children. We shouldn't just be saying it's individual parents to take care of their offspring. All children are our children.
Not necessarily to take care, but they need to don't you think they need to be somehow involved in the education, in that if the teacher labors so hard to teach a certain thing, does that not need to be enforced somehow at home? But again, I get your point, especially when you're talking about some of them may not be literate. So even in terms of reading, that may be a challenge, or even just some of the formulas or concepts may not be understood by the parent.
Yes, and you know now life has become harder. Parents have to hustle more. So we are spending more time out of the house trying to eke a living. So I don't think it's fair for me to work so hard out there to put money and food on the table, and then you want me to now also come and be a teacher. Parents have a unique role in terms of emotional support and character development, but to do the actual teaching of content, I think that's a little ambitious.
That would be ambitious.
Yeah.
All right, and as we wind up, there's also a new wave of homeschooling where now parents have realized, because we can't fix the schools, we can't fix the system, let me do what I can at home. Your thoughts on that? Because it seems to be growing.
Yeah, and let me just say I understand now, because of my own frustration in trying to have a conversation about the public education system. So I completely sympathize with parents who feel, why should I put my child through this? Why don't I just teach them at home? But let me say that I don't think we should be running away from a public education system. I think we should have a very good public education system so that it's a choice. It's not you're running away. But also from my experience, homeschool children, the ones I have been able to teach, what I admire about them is their character. They are not exam focused like the people who come out of the other schools. They are very confident, and even when they don't do very well, they don't feel that it's a personal judgment of them. They just say, you know, this is class, it ends here. So that kind of character and that kind of confidence is what I wish we would get in the public school system.
Is there something we can learn or glean from homeschoolers to bring now to the system? Because, like you mentioned, there are certain characteristics out of them that you can pull out, that you can, you know, identify. For instance, confidence, the fact that they're not exam focused. Some of them are also very in tune and focused towards other things other than academics, you know, music, arts, and things like that. How can we what is it that they have at home that they're not getting in school?
I think it's this exam results that has destroyed the public school system, and I'm including even the private schools that do 844. And also, what homeschooling does is that it says, even if you don't understand 2 + 2 today, even if you understand it in 2 years, it's fine.
It's fine.
But now what this chronological system does is that it says, if you don't understand 2 plus 2 in standard 1, you cannot go to standard 2. I think we need to be more open to the fact that some people may never master 2 plus 2 until they're 25. And then when it clicks, it just becomes wonderful. You know, they start seeing new things. People will not all understand things at the same time in the same year. And I think that's the point that we are missing in the school system. Let people learn, even if they don't do well, as long as we teach them well, that's the point. I always give an example of one of my mathematics teachers. I had a good time in school. One of my mathematics teachers, she taught me despite me not getting maths, and I didn't pass in her class. I started passing maths 2 years later. So imagine if she had given up on me when I was in Form 2. You know, I would never have been able to become better. So sometimes we insist on children understanding something in standard 7. You must get it. And maybe they won't get it until they're in Form 3. But it's fine. And that's what the homeschoolers get, that the chronological system imposed by government doesn't get.
Okay, I want to bring in Zinzi in just a bit, but what if you're given an opportunity to basically voice your thoughts on what we need to do as a country, what is it that you tell the those in charge of education in the country?
Lighten up. I mean, this thing is not serious. People learn for all their lives. So, you know, having such a rigid structured education system is just not fair. It's not fair to Kenyans, and it's not even human. So they need to lighten up, take education as a journey that never ends, and then educate that way. But, you know, having these outcomes and key performance indicators and competency, you know, tests. I mean, it's just making the education system more and more rigid, and eventually people are just going to check out.
All right, and Zinzi, I don't know if you had any questions for Dr. Wandia.
I do. Well, Dr. Wandia, what if, I've seen one critic saying, is it not just easier to adopt a system that's already there, e.g., for example, IGCSE? It is there, it has international standards, it's very difficult to leak exams. Would it be just much easier for us to adopt a different curriculum, a different system, in this case, IGCSE?
It wouldn't be easier, because when you adopt something that wasn't done for you by you, it becomes very difficult. It will be very difficult to spread that system all over the country, because it was not designed for us. I mean, 55 years after independence, we are still struggling with the state as it was constructed by the colonialists. So imagine even now a foreign education system. It will be more difficult.
We just homeschool at this rate?
There is hope. Let me say there is hope. There is hope if we let the teachers do their work.
Right.
And it does not cost as much as putting in a new system. Like what I was saying, these two initiatives, the development of teachers in schools and the Tusome initiative, they were fairly cheaper than having a new system. And the results are spectacular. The kids are happy. The educators are happy. You know, even the headmasters and the local communities are saying they're happy with the results. So why not do that instead of imposing a new system from Nairobi?
But there's hope at the end of it.
Oh yeah, as long as they are human beings, there's hope.
There's hope. Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Wandia Njoya, who's a lecturer, for joining us this morning on the education system. Let's keep that conversation going on online, and do let us know what your thoughts are. Meanwhile, Zinzi, we have some international news.
Exactly.